Right, hello, Group C. How is everyone? This is our second lesson for today. This morning we looked at consumption, or C, as part of AD. Now I'm going to look at the I as part of AD. Okay, so I standing for investment. Two questions I would pose. What is the formula for aggregate demand? We knew that from this morning. It was C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Second question here, what do firms invest in? I mean, I kind of said it this morning. It was if Leighton was to invest their money, it might be a new building project. It might be new IT technology. It might be new whiteboards, blackboards, interactive boards, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's when firms spend their money. Leighton's quite low level. If a private company chooses to build two new prisons, so that will be the kind of the whole buildings and all that, that is investment by a private company. Okay, so investment is firms spending their cash, simple as that. Now, what we need to think about then is part A and B. We need to think about the difference between gross and net investment, which is fairly simple. And then the whole thing on this lesson, just like the consumption lesson this morning, where we looked at what influences consumption, we're going to look here at what influences investment, and we'll go through each of those parts. Okay. First thing to work out is the difference between gross and net investment. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, when I get paid my salary, I get my gross pay, which is what I would have. Then I get my net pay, which is what I actually get with all the tax and bills, not bills, but tax and national insurance and all that taken away. In this respect, for investment, gross investment is spending on capital assets like buildings, machines, and equipment. This will increase the productive capacity of the economy, shifting the PPF outwards, leading to economic growth. So basically, gross investment is the creation of new resources, new materials, and that's forcing the PPF to move itself outwards. And obviously, if firms increase their investment, AD will also push outwards. Net investment, a little bit different. Net investment is gross investment, take away depreciation and replacement costs, okay? Without explaining what that means, let's look at the example and then we'll think about what we mean by depreciation and replacement. So for net investment, for example, a business owns a fleet of cars, owns a load of cars that their workers use to go out and do sales calls or whatever. The firm has 10, okay, and it buys 12 new cars, all right? The net investment is 2 cars. The net investment is 2 cars. The other 10 cars were there to replace the 10 old cars. Those 10 old cars have depreciated. They've got 90,000 miles on the clock. They're always breaking down. They don't look what they used to do. So the firm needs to replace them. So by buying the 12 new cars, they've only really bought 2 new cars. That net investment is 2. The other 10 were simply there to replace the old 10. Okay. And in theory, then, that's kind of in terms of the PPF, that's only 2 new resources coming on stream to let the firm do more business, etc. The other 10 were simply there to replace old ones. Okay. Now, I mentioned this morning, and I thought I'd already done it, but I hadn't. I forgot it was on the investment PowerPoint. So don't forget, investment is that definition there: spending by firms on capital goods. Important point to note, and I did mention this morning, investment is not to be confused with an investment by an individual in stocks, shares, bonds, hedge funds, whatever you want to call it. This will be regarded as saving, or it could be regarded as consumption by a person of a financial product. Okay, so what I said to you this morning, say I buy my son shares, all right, simple as that. And my dad used to do that for me. He used to buy me shares as well as other things. Like on my birthday, it would be like, here's a pair of socks and here's some shares in a company. But that was my dad consuming shares. Okay, we wouldn't list that as investment because my dad is not a business. Okay, and although in the media we often hear investment, people investing in shares, etc., they're kind of misusing the word investment in an economic sense. So investment is when firms do things. It says there, in economics, investment is only concerned by firms with the aim of improving their capital in terms of quantity, quality, or efficiency. All right, and then we're going to think about what determines the level of investment by firms now. So the rest of this PowerPoint is basically what influences firms to invest. And a lot of what we said this morning is also quite applicable. First thing is obviously economic growth. It says there the faster the pace of economic growth, the sooner capital equipment wears out or requires replacement. So firms have to increase. If you imagine that the UK economy is booming, there's high levels of theme one demand for goods. People are consuming as part of the macro economy. Firms need to be producing more products, but obviously their machines are going to wear out quicker. So a firm is obviously forced to invest into buying new machines. So obviously, as economic growth slows down, we've got less wear and tear. There'll be less investment. Okay. The next one, just like we have consumer confidence for us, we've got business expectations and business confidence. So if firms are confident in future economic prospects and the likelihood of consumption increasing, they're going to increase their investment now, which goes to show, looking at those videos this morning, at the moment, firms are not going to be investing. All right. Simply speaking, we're not consuming. Firms expect us to carry on with low levels of consumption. We're not confident as consumers. Firms are not going to be confident either. Okay. But if there's kind of news coming from the media or news coming from the government that, the economy is going to start seeing a bit of economic growth, consumption is going to start going up, then yeah, firms may well start to invest their cash. Okay. The next one, Keynes and animal spirits. This comes from an economist called John Maynard Keynes. We'll be looking at him quite a bit in the upcoming year and next year as well. And he coins the term animal spirits. And this is about the collective mood of investors. Okay, when this is strong, AD is going to increase, leading to greater investment. But what does he mean by animal spirits? Okay, well, one of the terms you might have heard as well in the media in recent months is the idea of herding, and that what the government wanted us to do was to get this thing called herd immunity to coronavirus. That if we all did the same thing, if we all went to the same restaurants, all went to the same shops, COVID would spread, we'd all get ill, we'd all get over it, then we'd all be immune, okay? So animal spirits and herding can be looked at for investment as well. And I told my other group this. I was reading a story to my son a few days ago, and it was about the lion being the king of the jungle, okay? So you imagine then that, say, Apple is the lion. Apple is the king of the jungle, okay? They are the top dog in the American economy, in the British economy, whatever you say. And let's imagine then that Apple realized that this new technology is starting to get popular in, I don't know, Korea or something. There's a new gadget for a phone, a new app for a phone, and Koreans are going mad for it. Okay, Apple as the kind of lion, as the king of the jungle, are going to go out. They're going to buy out that company from Korea, and they're going to start bringing the technology from their app into Apple phones. Okay. So the king of the jungle has pounced. Yeah, he's jumped. He or she has jumped, obviously, and they've got their technology. Then we think about the herd. When a lion runs left, the herd runs left. When a lion runs to the right, the herd runs right. I think we call a collective group of lions a pride, but let's not worry about it. Let's go with the herd, okay? All right, cows. When the lead cow goes forward, all the other cows go forward. They don't really question it, they just do because one's moving. And we can liken this to the Apple idea by saying that if Apple is starting to spend money on Korean apps, then, and I was going to say Samsung, but that would be silly because obviously they're a Korean company, but other phone companies, smaller phone companies, and maybe even Samsung might follow Apple as the kind of king of the jungle and use their animal spirits to make the same kinds of investments. Okay, so the herd then follows. I hope that makes some kind of sense. There's obviously problems here though, because if a cow moves forward and the herd follows it forward, as I've said, they're not questioning why the cow is moving forward. They're just following it, okay? And if we kind of really simplify modern firms, when Apple pounces, when Apple strikes to buy a Korean app in, other firms are thinking, God, Jesus, well, Apple are doing it. We better start doing it as well. They're not really questioning if the app is right for them. So Samsung might not be questioning, do we really need this bit of technology, this app to go into our software? They're just going to do it because Apple are doing it. And while Apple are doing it for the right reason, while they're investing because they've done their research and all that, companies like Samsung, etc., it may be a little bit more simplistic than that. Well, Apple have done something, we need to do something, okay? But the point we're trying to make is that it is like lions in a jungle, like apples in a field. Good Lord, like cows in a field. When one goes, everyone else goes. Okay, and certainly when AD is strong, when people are consuming, lead companies will make their moves and buy smaller companies and all that, and then other companies will simply follow. They won't even question why it's going on. So there you go, lions, cows, animal spirits, herding. I hope that all makes sense. Okay. All right, what else have we got then? Influences on investment, the demand for exports. Well, we kind of queried that as well this morning, didn't we? We said that Britain is seen to be a net importer as part of AD. X minus M is at -1%. We import far more than what we export. But imagine, if you will, that we are, I don't know, the Chinese economy. Demand for Chinese exports, for what was it, our Eid crackers, our Christmas crackers, all that, is always going to be huge. Okay, so in terms of investment, if demand for exports is high, this is going to encourage firms to invest in capital assets in order to increase their capacity to meet demand. It could be buying new machines, could be building new premises, could be extending on existing premises. Okay, but just like yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Demand for exports. Yeah, simple as that. When the demand for exports is high, yeah, firms are going to be investing to meet that demand. Again, like we said this morning, the idea of interest rates. Okay, so lower rates of interest make investment projects less costly, because just like you and I can go and we can take an overdraft, a mortgage, a kind of a small loan or whatever, or use a credit card, firms got access to a lot of money, you'd think, from the high street lenders, from the big banks, and also from private banks as well. And when the rate of interest is down to 0.1%, that means the cost of repaying these loans is obviously going to be far cheaper. So a lot more investment is going to be made. And don't think for a second that companies like Apple, whenever they do anything investment wise, they're spending their own profit, their retained profit. They will take loans. If they want to use their retained profit for something else, but want to build a new office space in California, there's nothing wrong with them financing it through a loan. Firms use loans like we use loans. Okay, they just, when they need money, they borrow it. The only thing to go against that is the idea of access to credit. And obviously, with rates of interest so low at the moment, don't forget, for a bank, if they give you a loan, the interest that they charge is how they make their profit, is how they make their cash. The problem is, with rates of interest so low at the moment, it's not really worth banks lending out that much money, because they're making such low profit on it. So they're looking in other ways to kind of make their money, to make their profit, other investments, all that kind of stuff. So businesses rely on banks, etc., to provide access to liquidity. Liquidity means cash. Liquidity means ready cash. Okay, so this college is very much illiquid, because all of our cash is tied up in classrooms, in carpets, in chairs, in computers, all that kind of stuff. We might only ever have like a few £1,000s of liquid cash on the premises at any one time in cash tills in the finance office. Okay. But obviously, new businesses and all that need ready cash to pay their bills, to pay their setup costs. And a lot of high street banks simply aren't lending. Certainly in the recession, those videos we looked at this morning, they referenced the 2008 recession. I mean, whole banks were created in 2012 while the economy was still struggling to recover post 2008 to provide finance for businesses. Okay. So yeah, and obviously those banks, the business bank, for example, was set up in 2012. Those rates of interest would have been a little bit higher than the rates of interest for me and you at the Barclays or the Halifax or whatever. Okay. And the last thing that influences investment is thinking about what government does and what regulations do. Okay, so businesses quite often take advantage of government grants to complement their own investments. A grant is when the government give money. It's not a loan. You don't pay it back. It's simply, here's some cash. Okay, but it's often tied to something. So if you look 3 lines down, this often applies to new businesses starting up. Or businesses locating in an area of social deprivation. So, for example, we know for the time being that somewhere like Blackpool on the coast, on the northeast coast, I think it's the northeast, yeah, has got a lot of poverty going on. There's a lot of social deprivation. So what the government might say is, if you want to come to Blackpool, you want to set up a whatever enterprise, whatever shop, you're going to set up a shop selling carpet or whatever, we'll pay you, say, £10,000 to locate in Blackpool. Because if a new business locates in an area, That then means that they're going to have to employ local workers. That means that they're going to pay taxes in that area. That means that they're going to benefit the local area. Local tradespeople, local builders might come to them, okay, for carpet to do their rebuilds and whatever. So that money is there to get companies into areas of high social deprivation. And the other thing is starting up new businesses from scratch. You've got things like the Prince's Trust, where young people that want to set up a shop, an enterprise, a business or whatever can go and get free money, because we know that the success rates of startups, new businesses, is so low. Okay? And the last bullet point then, by a government reducing rules and regulations, the government make it easier to invest in capital. For example, the example there, reducing bureaucracy when locating a new factory. Now, if you don't know what bureaucracy means, it simply means form filling, meetings, planning, permission, all this kind of stuff. So say that I've got a lump sum of money and I want to, there's a bit of land that I've seen in Waltham Forest, and what I want to do, I want to build a nightclub on it, for example. Okay, I mean, it wouldn't happen at the moment, but imagine I want to build a nightclub on a bit of green land. Okay, well, first of all, I've got to convince the local council, Waltham Forest, that they should let me open a nightclub there. Then I need to get the planning permission to be able to sell food in a nightclub, to sell drinks in a nightclub, to be able to play music until 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever. I would then need to, what else would I need to do to open up a nightclub? I mean, look, we go on and we go on. But at all points, there will be such levels of bureaucracy. I'll have to fill out a form to get a meeting, to fill out another form, to have another meeting, then I meet about the form that I filled out. You know what I mean? So between me wanting to open up a nightclub and getting the nightclub open could take like 3 or 4 years of just planning and meetings and costs and getting things done. If the government were to reduce bureaucracy and regulation, maybe I'd only need to fill out one form to have one meeting. Then the council would say, yes, you can open up your nightclub, get building. Okay. And when countries have got high levels of regulation and bureaucracy, quite often firms just can't be bothered to invest because they spend more money on legal meetings and legal fees than they're ever going to make through opening a new business or investing in a new machine or whatever. So yeah, the government have their role to play as well. This is some data from 2007 to 2014. I'm using that because obviously at the moment investment has dropped massively. Okay, what we're saying is that on the top left, business investment has made a big contribution to GDP, even though it is, I think, third in the pecking order. Consumption at 61, government spending 23, investment maybe 15. I've got those numbers maybe wrong. Okay, but obviously, a few things that we can tell from the data is that if you look at the purple line of best fit, investment in 2008, 2009, and early 2010 was down. It had dropped by about 20%. Okay. And even in recovery times post that recession, 2011, 12, 13, investment was only really increasing by like what, 5% each year. It's not huge figures. We had a spike in 2014, investment went to like 11%, but investment wasn't huge compared to the drop of 20%. If we continue the data on, I hate to think where investment would be now. I'd say it would be off the scale on the minuses, okay, but I don't have the data to back that up quite yet. That data will be being processed as we speak. The other thing to think about, as we kind of mentioned this morning, is what makes up our investment. So if you look, let's look at the ultimate trough. Okay, so if I get my cursor and we look at 2009, that point there. So we had kind of negative 20% investment, but 61% of that decrease was the service sector. It was the financial services, it was cafes, it was pubs, it was bars, it was travel agents. They're dead as an industry anyway, but you know, it was all that stuff. Our investment in the UK is only 14% into manufacturing, kind of capital products. 6% was mining, quarrying, oil and gas extraction, so dealing with like raw materials. 10% is electricity, gas and water, 9% is other. So obviously Britain's investment there is really dominated 61% by that service sector, okay? Whereas if you were to look at somewhere like China, for example, it will be manufacturing, it will be that dark blue bar, that would be the biggest bit, maybe services a bit less. Probably mining for them will be higher than the UK. One thing to say obviously about Britain, Great Britain, the United Kingdom, our oil is tucked away up in Scotland in the North Sea, like Brent Spar oil up near Aberdeen. Okay, there we go. There's a fascinating fact for you. All right, multiple choice. In economics, investment is best defined as pause and think, shout your answer out to yourself. Let's unpause. The flow of money into the stock of savings, no. Spending on capital goods in an economy, probably. The profit kept back by firms to finance future expenditure on new machinery and equipment, no. The stock of economic resources like factories and machinery, maybe. But if we go right back to the start of the PowerPoint, B is your correct answer. It's spending money on capital goods within an economy. Which of the following statements concerning UK investment is correct? Have a read, pause, unpause. Increased investment leads to a reduction in saving, maybe. Investment is the largest component of aggregate demand. No, we know that's consumption. Investment is a withdrawal from a circular flow of income. We haven't done that yet. And we would say that investment actually puts money into the circular flow. Investment can increase the capital stock of the economy. Weird one. Increased investment leads to a reduction in saving. But don't forget that firms can take loans to fund their investment. So you could be investing, but you could also be then doing more investment with loans and still saving profit. Okay, for me, D is the correct answer. Investment can increase the capital stock of the economy because firms are building new premises, buying new machines, etc., etc. Okay, there you go. Now, two things to do, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, we've got a sharp drop in UK business investment. This was an article from 2015. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a little kind of thing that I want you to fill in as a Google Doc. And I want you to think about what has caused the lack of investment and also what is the significance for the UK economy of that lack of investment. But I'll do a doc, so you just fill that in. And the second thing is going to be, again, little appetite for investment. This was, again, decreasing investment in 2014, probably still quite relevant for today. And I want you to answer questions 1 and 2. So it's explain using examples what is meant by investment for 4 marks. Go to exam structures, think about that. And then based on the data available, analyse 2 reasons why firms were reluctant to invest in 2014. And again, I'll put up a doc for you to type onto, and that's only 10 marks. So this should all be done by 7:30 tonight. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. I will leave you lot to it. Well done for this morning. That was some good work done. And I'll catch you lot next week. See ya.